They wouldn't let us fight with our own countrymen, so they gave us to the French. Funny thing is, the French treated us more like men than America ever did. I'm talking about this now because my grandson asked me. He's 15, came home from school talking about civil rights, about Dr. King, about how things are changing. He wanted to know what I did in the Great War, wanted to know if I was proud. That's a complicated question, son. My name is William James Tucker, and I served with the 369 Infantry Regiment, the Harlem Hellfighters, though we didn't call ourselves that back then. That was a name the newspapers gave us later, after we'd proven ourselves, after we'd bled enough to earn it. I grew up in Harlem, New York City. My father was a porter. My mother took in laundry. We weren't rich, but we had dignity. We had pride. My father used to tell me, "Hold your head up, William. Don't let anyone make you feel small." Hard advice to follow in 1917 America, but I tried. When war was declared in April 1917, I wanted to enlist. Figured if I fought for my country, maybe my country would finally see me as equal. Maybe if we proved ourselves in combat, came home as heroes, things would change. We'd earn respect, earn our place. I was 21 years old, and I believed that. God, I believed that. The 15th New York National Guard, that's what we were called before they redesignated us the 369th. We trained at Camp Wadsworth in South Carolina. That's where I learned that some Americans hated us more than they hated the Germans. We weren't allowed in town, couldn't use the same facilities as white troops. The Army didn't want us combat roles, wanted to make us laborers, stevedores, ditch diggers. Colonel Hayward, our white commanding officer, he fought for us, said we'd trained as combat infantry, and that's what we'd be. The American command didn't want us, said we'd be a liability, that Negro soldiers couldn't fight, would break under pressure, said we'd contaminate white units, so they gave us to the French Fourth Army, shipped us off like unwanted cargo. The French were desperate. They'd been bleeding for 3 years and needed bodies. They didn't care what color we were as long as we could shoot. We arrived in France in January 1918. The French gave us their helmets, their equipment, their rifles. We fought under French command, ate French rations, learned French tactics. And you know what? They treated us like soldiers, like men. That's what really broke my heart later. Not what the Germans did to us, what our own country did. The French sent us to a quiet sector first, near the Argonne Forest, to get us accustomed to trench warfare. Quiet is relative. Shells still fell. Men still died. But compared to what came later, it was quiet. I was in Company C, serving as a rifleman. We had the French Lebel rifle, longer and heavier than the American Springfield, but it worked. The French sergeants taught us their ways, showed us how to survive in the trenches, how to raid, how to patrol no man's land. My first patrol, I was terrified. Sergeant Henri Marchand, French veteran, 3 years in the trenches, half his teeth gone from trench mouth, he put his hand on my shoulder and said in broken English, "You fight good, you live. You freeze, you die. C'est simple." It was simple, brutally simple. We went out at midnight, 4 of us, crawling through the wire to scout German positions. I could hear them talking, laughing just 50 yards away, could smell their cigarettes. My heart was pounding so hard I thought they'd hear it. We made it back, reported what we'd seen. Marchand nodded, said, "Bon, you are soldier now." The first time we took casualties was in March. German raid on our trench. They came at dawn, out of the fog, threw grenades into our positions. Private Jackson Washington, we'd grown up 3 blocks apart in Harlem, took shrapnel to the throat. Bled out before we could get a medic. I'd known Jackson since we were kids. Used to shoot marbles together on 135th Street. Now I was scooping his blood out of the trench with a shovel so it wouldn't make the duckboard slippery. That's when it became real. When I understood this wasn't about proving ourselves or earning respect. This was about survival. about killing the men in the trenches across from us before they killed us. The French didn't doubt us. After that first month, after we'd held the line and taken our casualties and kept fighting, they treated us as equals, combat soldiers, brothers in arms. We ate together, fought together, bled together. Color didn't matter in the trenches, only whether you'd stand and fight when the shells started falling. We went into heavy combat in July 1918, the Champagne-Marne defensive. The Germans were making their last big push, trying to break through to Paris. We held a section of the line near Minocourt. The bombardment started at midnight. Thousands of shells falling like rain, high explosive, gas. The ground shook like an earthquake. Trenches collapsed. Men were buried alive. The noise, it wasn't just loud. It was physical. It hurt, made your teeth rattle, made your organs vibrate, made blood come from your nose. I crouched in a dugout with 5 other men, huddled together while the world ended above us. Private Robert Hayes was praying, same prayer over and over. Lord, deliver us from evil. Private Marcus Johnson had his eyes closed, wasn't making a sound, just shaking. Corporal James Reed kept checking his rifle, checking his ammunition, checking everything, giving his hand something to do so he wouldn't think about the shells. The barrage lasted 4 hours. When it stopped, we knew what came next, the attack. The Germans would come across no man's land while we were still stunned, still deafened, still digging ourselves out of the collapsed trenches. "Fix bayonets," Sergeant Davis yelled. "They're coming." They came out of the smoke like ghosts, hundreds of them. We opened fire. The French 75s behind us started dropping shells into no man's land, cutting them down, but they kept coming. Some made it to our wire, some made it through. Then it was close work. Rifle butts, bayonets, grenades, entrenching tools, fighting in the trenches, in the mud, hand to hand, no glory, no honor, just killing or being killed. I shot a German soldier at maybe 5 feet. Watched him fall. Didn't feel anything. Couldn't afford to feel anything. The next one was already coming. We held the line. Lost 40 men doing it. 40 men from our company alone. The French command cited us for bravery. Said we'd fought like demons. Said we'd saved the sector. 40 men. 40 men I'd trained with, fought beside, shared rations with. Marcus Johnson died in that fight. Bayonet through the chest. Robert Hayes took a bullet through the head while helping a wounded man. James Reed survived the battle but died 2 days later from gas exposure. His mask had been damaged in the fighting. We buried them in a field near the village. The French villagers brought flowers. An old woman kissed my cheek, called me a hero, pressed a bottle of wine into my hands. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a gravedigger. The 369th spent 191 days in combat. More than any other American unit, we never lost a foot of ground, never lost a man to capture. The French called us men of bronze. The Germans called us Hellfighters, or so they said. Might have been propaganda, didn't matter. We earned both names in blood. The Meuse-Argonne Offensive, September through November 1918. The biggest American battle of the war. We were attached to the French 161st Division, pushing through the Argonne forest. The Germans were dug in deep, pillboxes, machine gun nests, barbed wire kilometers thick. We attacked at dawn, September 26th. I'd stopped counting the attacks by then, stopped counting the dead. You learn to lock it away somewhere deep, save the grief for later. Later never came. There was always another attack, always more dead, always more to lock away. The forest was hell, trees shredded by artillery, bodies hanging in the branches, shell craters full of water and corpses, gas lingering in the low places. You couldn't see more than 20 yards ahead. Perfect ambush country. We took casualties every day. Lieutenant Morrison, good officer, treated us fair, died leading an attack on a machine gun nest. Never made it within 30 yards. Private Eddie Coleman lost both legs to a mine. We could hear him screaming, but couldn't reach him because of German fire. Took him 6 hours to die. You became numb. Had to. Otherwise, you'd go mad. You'd see a buddy get shot, watch him fall, and you'd just step over him and keep advancing. Not because you didn't care, because caring was a luxury you couldn't afford. Mourn later. Fight now. The French kept us in the line, kept pushing us forward. We were good soldiers, reliable, tough, wouldn't break. So they used us, ground us down day by day, attack after attack, casualty after casualty. By October, Company C was at half strength. The replacements they sent us were fresh, untrained, terrified. Boys, mostly. They'd last maybe a week before they were killed or wounded or broke down completely. I was a corporal by then. Not because I'd done anything heroic, just because everyone above me was dead. I was in charge of a squad because I'd survived long enough. That was the only qualification that mattered. Survival. I led those boys into attacks I knew would kill some of them. Gave orders I knew would get men killed. What choice did I have? Orders came down from French command. I passed them along. We attacked. That was the job. Some nights, I'd lie in the trench and think about Harlem, about my mother's cooking, about the jazz clubs on Lenox Avenue, about walking down the street without worrying about a sniper or a shell. Seemed like a dream, seemed like something that happened to a different person in a different life. November 5th, 1918, 6 days before the armistice, though we didn't know that then. We were ordered to take a German strongpoint near Seychelles. Machine gun bunker with overlapping fields of fire, wire all around it, impossible to flank. French command said it had to be taken. Didn't matter the cost. My squad was part of the assault. 12 men. Boys, really. Youngest was Willie Thompson, 18 years old, from Georgia. Oldest was me at 23, ancient by the standards of trench warfare. We went over at dawn. The machine guns opened up immediately. Willie Thompson died in the first 30 seconds, bullet through the face. He was running beside me. Then he was on the ground, and there was nothing where his face had been. We kept going, because that's what you do. 7 more men went down in the next 100 yards. The wire stopped us. It wasn't cut. The artillery had missed it. We were pinned down, taking fire from 3 sides. Private Lewis Grant, he tried to cut through the wire with cutters. The machine gun got him, stitched him across the chest. He hung there in the wire, dead, and we had to leave him because we couldn't reach him. Corporal Samuel Brooks stood up to throw a grenade. Sniper shot him through the throat. He fell into my arms, blood pumping from his neck, trying to speak, trying to say something. I don't know what. I'll never know. He died in maybe 10 seconds. 3 of us made it back to our trench. 3 out of 12. The attack failed. We didn't take the strong point. Those 9 men died for nothing. I sat in that trench covered in Samuel Brooks' blood, and I couldn't stop shaking. Not from fear, from rage. Pure rage. We'd proven ourselves 1,000 times over. Bled more than anyone should have to bleed. And they were still throwing us at machine guns like we were expendable. 6 days later, the war ended. 6 days. Willie Thompson, Lewis Grant, Samuel Brooks, all the others, they died 6 days before the armistice. For what? For a strong point we didn't even need. For a war that was already over. We came home in February 1919. They gave us a parade in New York City. Thousands of people lining the streets, cheering, waving flags. We marched up Fifth Avenue in formation, wearing our French Croix de Guerre medals. And for one day, one single day, we were heroes. Then it ended. We went back to being Negroes in America. Back to segregation. Back to being treated like we were less than human. Some of our men came home and got lynched for wearing their uniforms. Lynched for thinking that serving their country meant something. For thinking things might change. I got my old job back working in a warehouse. My boss, white man who'd never left New York during the war, he told me not to get uppity just because I'd been to France. Told me to remember my place. My place. I'd spent 191 days in combat. Survived attacks that killed better men than him. Earned medals from the French for bravery under fire. And my place was loading boxes in a warehouse for half what white workers made. That's when I understood. We'd been used. They needed us to fight, so they let us fight. But they never saw us as equal. Never saw us as men. We were tools, weapons, expendable. The nightmares started after I got home. I'd wake up screaming, seeing Willie Thompson's face, seeing Samuel Brooks dying in my arms, seeing all the others. My mother would hear me and come sit by my bed, hold my hand like I was a child again. She never asked what I'd seen. I think she knew I couldn't tell her. I tried to find the other survivors from Company C. Some had died after coming home. Accidents, violence, one suicide. The ones I found, we didn't talk about France. Couldn't. It hurt too much. We'd meet up sometimes, have a drink, sit in silence. That was enough. Just knowing someone else understood. The worst part wasn't what we'd endured. It was knowing it meant nothing. We proved ourselves. Proved we could fight, could sacrifice, could bleed and die for our country. And it changed nothing. Not one thing. My grandson, he asks me if I'm proud. If I'd do it again. I'm proud of the men I served with. Proud of the 369th. Proud that we never broke, never ran, never surrendered. We were the Harlem Hellfighters, and we earned that name in blood and mud and horror. But proud of America. Proud of what they did with our sacrifice. Number. We fought for a country that didn't want us. We bled for a country that despised us. We came home as decorated heroes and went back to being second-class citizens. We thought if we proved ourselves in the worst hell humanity could create, we'd earn our equality. We were wrong. I'm 74 years old now. I've lived through 2 world wars, seen America change in some ways, stay the same in others. My grandson tells me about the sit-ins, the freedom riders, the fight for civil rights. He's got hope. He believes things will change. I hope he's right. I hope his generation can finish what we started. Because we tried. God knows we tried. We gave everything we had. The French gave us medals, gave us respect, treated us like men. Our own country gave us Jim Crow and segregation in the back of their hand. I still have my uniform, my croix de guerre, my citation for bravery. They're in a trunk in my closet. Haven't looked at them in years. They represent the man I thought I could be, the country I thought we could have. Both were illusions. Willie Thompson died thinking he was fighting for freedom. Samuel Brooks died thinking he was fighting for democracy. They died believing the lie. Died believing that sacrifice and courage would be enough. I survived. Came home, lived another 42 years. But part of me died in those trenches, too. The part that believed, the part that had faith. The part that thought being a good soldier, a brave soldier, would make me a full citizen. The Harlem Hellfighters, men of bronze, Hellfighters. We were all those things. We earned every name they gave us. But we never earned what we really fought for. Simple human dignity in our own country. We came home as heroes on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, we were just Negroes again. That's the truth my grandson needs to know. That's the real story of the Harlem Hellfighters. We never lost a trench. We never lost a man to capture. We never failed a mission. But we lost the war that mattered most. The one we thought we were fighting at home. And that's the wound that never healed.